Royal Standley of Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, offering securities through United Planner Financial Services. Member FINRA SIPC shares his planning approach to help people toward a place where they may be at peace regarding their financial goals. In this dynamic podcast, Royal will share his insights on how to design a retirement plan to help you plan for your future. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Life by Design with Royal Standley of Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors. Today we're talking about transitioning into retirement. Good morning, Royal.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah, so transitioning into retirement, that is a big, broad subject. There's a lot we could talk about. What are we focusing on today?
Absolutely. Now, when we sit down with clients, for the most part, we're talking about the money side of things. We're talking about that transition into stopping your kind of day-to-day job there and transitioning to a point in time where you're living off Social Security and the other assets you've accumulated over time. We're going to step back from that conversation today, and we're going to focus on that transition into retirement and what happens mentally and emotionally to you when you step out of the workforce and begin that change into kind of this later stage of life where you're no longer working 5 days a week.
I can see, I love this subject. I absolutely love it. I love the psychology of it. I love kind of diving into the personalities of different types of people that are going through this type of transition. But I think a lot of people are thinking right now mentally, when I transition to retirement, there's going to be one reoccurring word that's going to go over in my head over and over, and that's woohoo, right? Woohoo, retirement. But some people may be dreading it as well. But so where do we want to start in this unpacking this subject today? I'm really excited.
Yeah, where I want to start is really just with the realization that everyone is wired differently. And everyone has a different set of circumstances. So we're going to be talking somewhat generally. I don't just want to focus on like the typical married couple or, a single person. We're going to talk about both of those, but I want to make sure we include everyone in this conversation because everybody has a different set of circumstances that they're going to step into retirement with. So the first thing, let's just kind of start with defining what we get from our job, our career, our work. So number one, I think the number one thing that we get is money. Yeah. It's very important to get paid for the work that you do. But in reality, I think there's some other very, very important things. And some would say more important than money is the sense of camaraderie you get from going to work each day. For a lot of people, their coworkers are the people they spend the majority of their working career around. You might only get 4 or 5 hours with your family in the evenings, but you're getting a solid 8 or 9 hours each day with people you're working around. And when you step out of the workforce there, a lot of those relationships are just going to kind of disappear. You might see them occasionally for a cup of coffee or a lunch here or there, but you're going to lose that every day. Hey, Bob, how you doing? How's your kids? That sort of thing. The other thing I think that's really important for people is a sense of purpose. No matter kind of what you're doing, there's just a sense of purpose in a job well done. If you're working in a career that you find personally, connected to, whatever it is, and everybody feels a different connection to what they decide to do for their career. That sense of purpose is just really important, and that can disappear if you found kind of the majority of your purpose through your job.
Yeah, and I would even say that along with that sense of purpose, I would almost say that it would also be your identity for a lot of people.
100%. And I see this quite often with men. Mm-hmm. That idea that who you are is tied up in what you do for a living. And when you retire, you've probably worked your way up to a certain level of respect within your organization. People come to you with, problems or advice and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when you step out of the workforce, that just stops.
Yeah. Yep.
So finding that sense of connection, sense of purpose there, can be important. I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about as they're making that plan for, hey, I'm going to retire at the end of this year. What does that look like? And finally, I think one of the most subtle things there is your work gives you a routine. Now, whether you're working kind of a nurse's schedule where it's all over the place, or if you're just a standard 8 to 5 working in an office type of person, that sense of routine that you get will just kind of disappear there if you're not careful when you step into retirement. So we kind of defined those 4 things: money, a paycheck, camaraderie, being around the people you work with and your clients, if you're working with people, your customers, a sense of purpose, a sense of respect, of identity built into that, and then finally routine. When you retire, those things are going to shift, and it can be a very, very drastic shift, depending on how much energy and effort you've put into your working career and how much you have outside of that. So what we look at, and I think most financial planners start with the money side of things, is, okay, well, you're not going to have a paycheck. How do we replace that? Okay, there's Social Security, there's pensions, there's your investments. That's kind of the easiest, I think, thing to deal with, just because that's pretty black and white. You need $5,000 a month. You get so much from this category, so much from this category, et cetera, et cetera. But getting into kind of those side of things and kind of talking about the emotional aspect and the mental aspect of retirement, I think that's where people in the financial industry can really provide a lot of value, because we're constantly dealing with people going through this transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I'd like to spend, the rest of our time with is kind of looking at all the things that you can be doing to make this change a little bit more manageable. And I think for a lot of people, maybe just maximize those things and come up with some ideas that you can take and implement, whether you're retired or not yet. But I think to just kind of deepen some relationships, deepen your sense of purpose, and give yourself, I think, a higher level of well-being.
All right, let's dig into it.
Excellent. So we'll just kind of jump in here. Money, as financial advisors, we can handle that. We can handle setting up where you're taking your income from, testing those plans and doing that. So we're going to set that one off to the side. But that camaraderie aspect that you got from your job, let's just take a few minutes and just kind of dig into that.
All right.
Once that disappears, you now have some choices to make there of how are you going to build that sense of community there that you once had through your career. So number one, and what I see quite often there, is people kind of stepping back and say, okay, I'm going to go start visiting the grandkids now. I'm going to spend a lot more time with my family. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's one of the great reasons to retire is to spend more time with your loved ones. If you look at the joy I think a lot of people get from their family, it's just really important. For others, it's, okay, now either myself or my group of friends, we're going to go and we're going to have experiences together. We're going to travel together. Maybe we'll just start fishing more, whatever that could be. I think that's a great way of kind of including that camaraderie with those people and those relationships that you had prior to retirement.
Okay, so I want to take a step back here, Royal, because I do have a couple things about what you've said so far that I want to explore a little bit more with you.
Perfect.
From personal experience, right? So the reconnecting with family and friends. Here's the problem. Reconnecting with family. I love my father. He's going to be 80 years old this year, and God bless him. I love spending time with him. I love to be able to go fishing with him. I don't do it enough, because time escapes me a lot of times. But here's the thing. If you are retiring, you have to realize that your family's not retired. Your grandkids are not retired. Your children are not retired. And calling them up at 10 a.m. on a weekday saying, "You busy?" I love my father. I love my mother. God bless me. They're both still alive. But the answer is yes. I'm working because I still have a job. I still have to work. They call my wife at work. Hey, what's going on? Just working. So there's a lot of idle time. And I don't want people to think, and I know that you caution them at this as well. You want to connect with family and friends now that you're retired, but realize that it's still not going to fill that void of your workday because most likely your family's working during that time. So it's not like you can spend that time and replace it with the connections with family and friends because they're not all retired. And that brings me to the next point of what you were just talking about, the clubs or organizations that you are a part of. I think it's so vitally important that people understand you really need to start looking at those clubs, organizations, whatever you're getting involved in, making sure you're doing that 5, 6 years, 7 years before you retire, because it's not as though you can just retire and then have all these fast friendships and relationships in place. You've really got to start to build that before you retire. So you're almost transitioning those relationships from one to the other. So all of a sudden it's like, if you've got a group of retirees that you're starting to be a part of, and yes, you can't attend the club very often, but you're doing that in between work or on certain Saturdays or whatever it is. Once you retire, it's almost like they're able to welcome you with open arms, like, hey, now you're part of the full group, right? And you've made those relationships, and you're almost replacing the ones from work with this group now. Have you seen that experience? Have you had clients that have said, hey, this has been really beneficial?
100%, because I think there's this idea that you're going to start living your life once you retire. And I've seen, some people who have just focused on work so long, they've let other parts of themselves and their personality maybe wither a little bit by not staying involved. And they sort of start closing in on themselves. So I think that's an excellent point of, staying involved. One of the things I personally love is being a member of Rotary. If you don't know, Rotary is a service organization. Usually we meet once a week over breakfast or lunch. And it's just a great way of staying connected to the community, staying connected to, doing good in the world. And it's great to see some of the retired folks in our club who have been in Rotary for years and still look at it as a way of just having that fellowship time. And having that camaraderie that I think is so important. We have one member, we call him Grandpa Duck. We do duck races each year where they dump the rubber duckies into the river and have a duck race like that. And for the last 10, 15 years, he has sold more ducks than I think any other Rotarian in our region. Yeah. That's just what he's known for. And as he's gotten older, we've just kind of watched him, slow down a little bit. And right now, we just have a weekly sign up of who's going to go pick up Grandpa Duck.
That's awesome.
And bring him to the Rotary Club, bring him to the Rotary meeting, and then drive him home. And I think that level of friendship is just something rare that you don't always find everywhere. So being involved in an organization like that, like Rotary, like Kiwanis,
nice,
like your church, all of those are a great way of fostering that camaraderie that you could lose when you retire from your job.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is if you're passionate about whatever service you're doing, you begin to look forward to it. You begin to look forward to those times where work during the last couple of years might have, even though you have good relationships, it might have been harder to get up in the morning to go, oh man, here we go. All right, I got to go to work. Come on, we can get up, right? And just getting to that point, now you have something that you can look forward to because it's almost a soul fulfillment of being needed, being wanted, people recognizing the value that you bring to the organization, and then that camaraderie you're talking about. So I think it's so important. I think it's a key piece that a lot of people just don't even think about.
Absolutely. And that kind of dovetails, I think, nicely into talking about a sense of purpose. And I think really what I just want to step back, and we can kind of talk about the specific strategies here, but I think finding that sense of purpose, we really have to step out of ourselves and kind of take the focus off of ourselves and put it somewhere else in the world. So this could look like finding a volunteer opportunity in a project or a nonprofit that you really believe in. I think it's kind of getting out of your own head and giving back to the world, giving back to what's important to you. That really is, I think, one of the best ways of finding that sense of purpose in life. and having, I think, a deeper and richer experience as you move through life is, giving of yourself, not being self-focused. I don't necessarily mean selfish, but focus on yourself. It's a great way of kind of stepping out of that shadow of self, and really expanding your world and expanding your worldview.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. The other things that I've seen a lot of retirees do is jumping into a passion of some kind. It could be playing more golf, but there's only so much golf you can play. It could be, developing a hobby, like collecting. Could be learning new things, reading more books. I think it's just delving deeper into, what makes you tick emotionally, what interests you, what sparks that flame of curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to add something to that, if you don't mind, Royal.
Oh, of course.
So I think that one thing that a lot of folks that are going into retirement, if you have children, if you have family that is of the younger generation, whatever that looks like, whether it's children, grandchildren, I would love to encourage you as part of your routine. Once you retire, you're not going to be able to fill every day with everything, but maybe once a week for an hour or twice a week for an hour each time, I would encourage you to write down some of the stories, your stories, life stories, that you can preserve those types of memories, stories you've probably told your kids and your grandkids, probably told them multiple times, but write them down. If you don't like to write physically, you can type them. If you don't like to type physically, there's software that you can just talk into your computer and it'll write down what you say. And then there's a lot of different ways that you can get that edited and cleaned up and put into like almost short stories that you've developed. And I say that because I think it's important. I love my father. Like we talked about earlier, he's 80. He's told me a ton of stories. We've encouraged him to write some of them down. My mom's helped him write some of them down as well. She loves to write. So she's helped him to do that. But that's more valuable to me than any inheritance that he could leave me. Anything that he could leave me, just knowing that his words are on that paper or that story is being preserved, because my grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, won't hear a lot of those stories. And I want to be able to share those with them, and I want him to be able to share those with them beyond his time here on earth. So part of that routine that can get you just a treasure trove of information for your future generations as well.
Absolutely. I think that sense of history, that storytelling tradition, I think that's something we've really lost. And, one of my favorite memories was my grandfather-in-law. He had been a World War II prisoner of war on the German side. He was captured by the Germans.
Oh, wow.
Had a successful business, had a ton of racing stories because he loved to race cars. And we just bought him a book of kind of prompts. What was it like to, go to high school? What was your first experience going overseas? That sort of thing. And him just sitting there and talking through all these things was probably a memory I don't think I'll ever forget. Just hearing about his experiences. And it was just so rewarding, I think, for everyone in the family to hear that. Because oftentimes we don't make time to ask those questions and ask for those stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of leads us into talking a little bit about routine. Now, a couple of sayings I've heard from a lot of my retired clients is, number one is, I don't understand how busy I am now that I'm retired. And number two is, my day is gone before I know it. And I think this is where a routine can really be helpful in creating some space around yourself to make sure that you're not losing time to things that just aren't important to you. So number one, I think, in building your daily routine is just looking at the things that you just want to do with your time, whether it's, playing golf, going to the gym, going to a class, make sure you start scheduling those things. Even though, you're retired, you still want to manage your time to a certain level. Now, there's absolutely going to be times where you just want to say, I don't want to be on a clock. I want to have time to myself. Go ahead and schedule that time too. Say just, for the next week, I'm just not going to put any pressure on myself, but then I'm going to get back into a routine. So you got to schedule in what's important. What are the things you want to be doing with your time? And then also looking at, what are the essential things that I need to be doing? For instance, I think in retirement, as you're getting older, as you're slowing down, one of the most important things you can focus on is your health. So, that could be going to the gym, joining a walking group, just being outside more, all of those things that can just improve your health. I just think that that's such an essential part of having a, healthy and prosperous retirement there. We really need to kind of take hold of the time we have and make sure we factor in some time there for, getting out, getting moving, and taking care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you spent all this time getting ready for this retirement that's going to be amazing. And if you don't keep your health up, you don't get to experience it very long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And quality of life really is one of the most important things that we want our clients to focus on, because if you don't have your health, it's very hard to enjoy all the other things, other opportunities that you have available there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I want to kind of bring up with routine here is when we're looking at what should be in your daily kind of routine is also what shouldn't be there. And I think, you've worked so hard to have a retirement designed the way you wanted to. I think it's really important to look at the things that you can just let go of. What are the things that don't bring you joy? Derek Sivers, he's a entrepreneur that I just really respect. He has basically a binary where if a task or, sitting on a board or a project, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. If it's not something that's going to bring you joy and it's not something that you really, really want to do, just let it go. That way you have space for the things that you want to do. Things that just don't bring you joy will fill up your calendar if you let it. So finally, as we're kind of wrapping up here today, I just want to kind of leave you with a couple of ideas here.
Absolutely.
You can kind of takeaways that you can walk away with here. So number one, I encourage people all the time, prioritize the early part of retirement for travel and activities. Prioritize that time between, whenever you retire and let's say 75, make sure you're getting your travel in. There's natural things that begin happening to the body as we age and what happens to our energy levels where your desire for those things that you have early on in retirement just might not be there as you approach 80. So make sure you're prioritizing that travel and activity there. Look for ways of building your community of friends and family. I think it's just super important to have those connections, especially as you get older.
Yeah.
Take some time, try something new, explore new opportunities, try those new things. Mm-hmm. I think this world that we live in, there's endless opportunities to do that. So take advantage of that if that's something that interests you. And then finally, stay on top of your health. I think it's more important than ever as you enter retirement to really prioritize your health, because what we're doing is we're saving and maintaining that quality of life that you want to have. So with that, I think we're kind of wrapping up here. Did you have any other questions for me?
I don't. I think you covered this stuff very, very well. I do want to just go back to one thing real quick. If anything that Royal has spoken about today interests you, or you love some resources on kind of some of the clubs and organizations that are out there that you may be wanting to get plugged into, or just kind of discuss what you have in mind as you approach retirement, or maybe you have the thought of, that journaling idea. I kind of like that, but I really don't want to spend time writing. I don't like writing, or I'm terrible at cursive or whatever. Royal has, he knows of some free software that you can actually record your voice and tell it in story form and save those recordings for your future generations. There's all sorts of resources that Royal has. So please reach out to Royal. Royal, what's the best way they can get a hold of you? Yeah,
visit our website at opfa.com, or you can just give me a call at 541-772-1116.
Fantastic, Royal. Thank you so much for being there for your clients and everybody listening.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening to the Life by Design podcast with Royal Standley. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Royal comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Life by Design podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The views expressed are those of the presenter and may not reflect the views of United Planner Financial Services. Material discussed is meant to provide general information and is not to be construed as specific investment, tax, or legal advice. Individual needs vary and require consideration of your unique objectives and financial situation. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Advisory services offered through Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, Inc. Securities offered through United Planner Financial Services of America, member FINRA and SIPC. Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, Inc. and United Planners Financial Services are independent companies.